Hey film fans, welcome to CINEPRO, your ultimate hub for all movie recaps, from heartwarming classics to the latest blockbusters. Our movie begins with a man named Carl, who is sitting in a black car parked in front of a bar. He's waiting for a girl named Devon, who arrives and gets in the car with him right away, showing that they know each other. After that, they go together to Carl's house and Devon goes inside. She finds a lot of books and tries to pass the time while Carl finishes what he's doing. She notices that most of the books are about medicine and is surprised Carl owns them, even though he isn't in the medical field. At the same time, Carl is standing in front of the fireplace, heating up a metal rod and waiting for Devon as she leaves the room. He hits her in the stomach with the rod and hangs her on the wall with it. Then he goes to watch TV and sees the police searching for the killer who is kidnapping girls. The police suspect a nurse named Daryl, but after investigating him, they can't find any evidence against him. It turns out that Carl is actually the killer the police are looking for. Next, we move to Mike and Kelsey, the two officers investigating the girls' kidnapping case. They are responsible for the case, but can't find any information about the killer. They finish their day, and Mike takes his colleague Kelsey to his house, where he introduces her to his wife, Chell, and his daughter, Abby. Mike sees that his daughter, Abby, wants to go out to meet her friend Ted, but her mother doesn't agree and refuses to let her go out. Abby gets upset, goes to her room angry, and Mike, her father, tries to calm her down. He tells her that her mother is just worried about her, and after she calms down, he takes her to dinner along with his son Jake. Then we return to Carl, who is cutting up Devon's body and putting it in the fridge. We see him going down to the basement with some food. When he gets there, he leaves the food and exits through another door. After that, we see Detective Kelsey, who lives alone, isn't married, and has no children, but she owns many books about raising children and how to deal with them. We go back to Mike, who is sitting in his room searching for any information that could lead him to the killer. At this time, his daughter Abby comes in to sit with him and watches him work. She sees photos of the kidnapped girls hanging on the wall and asks her father about them. He tells her those are the girls the killer kidnapped, but they haven't been able to find any of them. The next day, someone goes to the police station to report Devon missing. It's her friend John, who says she's been missing since the night of the party and hasn't shown up yet. Mike seems interested in what John is saying because he wants to know who kidnapped her. Kelsey tries to reassure him and says Devon might not have been kidnapped and could just be staying out somewhere since last night. She tells him that since no body has been found, there's no danger, and Devon might not be kidnapped, so they should focus on another, more important case. But Mike ignores her and goes to search for Devon himself. He checks the street cameras from where Devon was last seen and finds out she was with a friend named Crystal. He also sees the car was black, but the license plate isn't visible on the camera. Then we move to Carl, who is going to meet the nurse Daryl, the one the police were investigating. Carl gives Daryl a note with the names of some medications for him to get from the hospital. Daryl is scared and doesn't want to continue with Carl's crimes. Carl then shows him a video of Daryl killing a girl and threatens to report him to the police if he doesn't get the medications. Daryl gets scared and agrees to get the medications, so Carl won't turn him in. We go back to Mike, who is questioning Crystal. She tells him the last time she saw Devon was getting into a car with a man. She says the car was black and gives him the license plate number, which Kelsey takes to check who owns the car. After that, Daryl is at the hospital trying to steal the medications to give to Carl. We return to Mike, who is in his office working on the case. He calls his wife Chell and tells her he won't be able to make it home for dinner because he has a lot of work. Chell tells him Abby wants to go out against her will and is very upset and yelling. At that time, Abby is with her mother, arguing, and then goes to call her boyfriend Ted, telling him she'll come to the restaurant where he works and he has to wait for her. Mike and Kelsey are searching for the car owner using the number Crystal gave them and discover there are 89 stolen black cars. They go to their boss and tell him there are 89 criminals who have stolen black cars. Now they need to check all 89 criminals to find out which one is the killer they're looking for. Next, we see Daryl going to a restaurant to meet Carl and give him the stolen medications. When Daryl sees Carl's car arrive at the restaurant, he goes out to hand over the medications. At that moment, Abby arrives at the restaurant and meets Ted, who tells her he has to break up with her and they can't see each other anymore so he can focus on his studies. Abby gets upset, leaves the restaurant, and goes outside to smoke a cigarette. Carl sees her standing there, approaches, and offers her a ride. Abby agrees and gets in the car with him. Ted finds Abby's phone and jacket and goes outside to give them to her but can't find her. He sees the black car driving away. Carl gets home with Abby, ties her up, searches her clothes, and finds her wallet. Inside, he finds a photo of Abby with her father and realizes he has kidnapped a police officer's daughter. At the same time, Mike and Kelsey are on a mission, entering the house of one of the criminals who stole a car. They surround the house, and when they go inside, They find the owner paralyzed and unable to move. Mike goes out to look for the car and finds it, but without license plates. He realizes the criminal stole the plates and used them for the crime. Chell calls Mike and tells him Abby has been out for a while and hasn't returned, so Mike goes home with Kelsey. When they arrive, they learn that Chell has called all Abby's friends, but they said that Abby didn't go to their place. So Clissy offered to call one of her journalist friends and publish Abby's photo to speed up the search for her. Meanwhile, Carl is still torturing Abby and filming her, and he keeps electrocuting her, which makes him remember his first kidnapping operation when he abducted his daughter while she was standing by the road. Then he goes to remove the license plates from his car and throws them with the rest of the plates he used before. Mike and Clissy are searching Abby's computer for any messages, but they don't find anything that leads them to her whereabouts. Mike gets very angry because he can't be reassured about his daughter. His boss asks him to take a leave until they find Abby, but he refuses. Then Ted goes to Mike and tells him what happened between him and Abby. He says that Abby was with him in the restaurant, and when she forgot her phone and jacket, he went out to give them to her, but he saw her getting into a black car and couldn't catch up with her. Mike gets angry at him because he denied that Abby had come to him before and starts beating him for lying when they asked him about her. Ted notices the pictures of Daryl hanging on the wall and tells Mike that Daryl was present when the car was at the restaurant. At the same time, Carl still has Abby tied up and is still torturing her. We see him with two other girls, Brittany, who appears to be crazy because she was locked in the basement for a long time, and the other girl, Lauren, who is pregnant and asleep most of the time. We go back to Mike, who has reached Daryl and asks him about the last place he went the night he met Abby. Daryl says he was at the hospital, but when Mike hears him, he knows he's lying. Mike gets angry and keeps beating him. Then he takes out a picture of his daughter Abby and shows it to him, but Daryl denies knowing anything about her, which makes Mike even angrier, and he starts beating him again. But Clissy stops him and takes him outside the hospital. Mike publishes his daughter's photo in the newspaper and tells Clissy that people are saying his daughter ran away and was working in a bar. Carl goes down to the basement to give the girls the medicine he got from the hospital, and we learn that he kidnaps girls and makes them get pregnant. And if a girl doesn't get pregnant, he kills her. He tests Abby and finds out she's pregnant, which surprises him because she's still young. Mike goes back home and searches through the files he has for any information that might help him find anything, but he doesn't find anything important and gets angry, breaking everything around him. Then he goes to Abby's room and finds many photos of her with Ted and a pregnancy test, so he realizes his daughter is pregnant. He goes back to his room and keeps searching through the files for Daryl's address and heads there. When he arrives, he doesn't find Daryl, so he searches the apartment for anything and finds a lot of papers listing medicines that Carl wrote for him. He feels like someone is in the apartment with him. When he hears a sound, he pulls out his gun and gets ready, but it's only Clissy, who came to help him in hopes they might find something. At the same time, Abby gets close to the other girls and talks with them. Lauren tells her that Carl kidnapped her 3 years ago, that this is her second pregnancy, and that every time she gives birth, Carl takes her baby away. Abby asks how Carl kidnapped her, and Lauren tells her it was through Daryl, who tricked her and brought her to Carl. She also tells her that Carl brings girls to get them pregnant, and if a girl doesn't get pregnant, he kills her. He tests Abby and finds out she's pregnant, which surprises him because she's still young. Mike goes back home and searches through the files he has for any information that might help him find anything, but he doesn't find anything important and gets angry, breaking everything around him. Then he goes to Abby's room and finds many photos of her with Ted and a pregnancy test, so he realizes his daughter is pregnant. He goes back to his room and keeps searching through the files for Daryl's address and heads there. When he arrives, he doesn't find Daryl, so he searches the apartment for anything and finds a lot of papers listing medicines that Carl wrote for him. He feels like someone is in the apartment with him. When he hears a sound, he pulls out his gun and gets ready, but it's only Clissy, who came to help him in hopes they might find something. At the same time, Abby gets close to the other girls and talks with them. Lauren tells her that Carl kidnapped her 3 years ago, that this is her second pregnancy, and that every time she gives birth, Carl takes her baby away. Abby asks how Carl kidnapped her, and Lauren tells her it was through Daryl, who tricked her and brought her to Carl. She also tells her that Carl brings girls to get them pregnant, and if a girl doesn't get pregnant, he kills her. She adds that Brittany hasn't given birth yet and is afraid Carl will kill her. Mike is standing outside Daryl's house, watching it to find any clues, thinking about all the papers he found in the apartment, most of which are restaurant papers. He remembers the name of the restaurant from one of the papers and calls them to ask if Daryl has contacted them recently to order food. Then he goes to the hospital to meet the nurse who works with Daryl and waits for her at the restaurant. But the surprise is that Carl turns out to be the one working at the restaurant, and he's shocked when he sees Mike in front of him. But Mike still doesn't know Carl is the kidnapper and asks him about Daryl. Carl says he doesn't know anything about him except that he works at the hospital. At that moment, the nurse comes to meet Mike, and he asks her about Daryl. She tells him that Daryl hasn't come to the hospital for 2 days. Mike takes out a paper and shows it to her, and she says, "The person who wrote this paper is not a doctor and has nothing to do with medicine." Carl is focused on Mike as he sits with the nurse, trying to listen in on their conversation. Mike finishes and goes to meet Clissy and tells her that there's another person helping Daryl kidnap girls, and the medicines listed on the paper are for pregnant women. He says the person kidnapping the girls isn't killing them since no bodies have been found, but Clissy doesn't believe him, so he gets angry at her. She calls Crystal, so Mike leaves Clissy standing and walks away. We go to Abby, who is encouraging the girls to escape from Carl and help each other, but Brittany calls Carl and tells him Abby is planning to escape. Carl comes and gives Brittany a whip and asks her to beat Abby. Mike goes to meet Crystal, who tells him about a girl named Amy whom the criminal tried to kidnap, but she managed to escape. Mike gets Amy's address from her and goes to meet her. He finds her face injured, and she tells him the criminal who tried to kidnap her did this to her. Mike asks if there is any distinguishing feature, and she says his smell indicated he worked in a restaurant. Then we go to Abby, who is sitting and crying, telling Carl she won't do it again, so Carl believes her and gives her food. Meanwhile, Daryl has booked a flight to take her out of the country, but Clissy finds out the flight was canceled due to bad weather. She also learns that Daryl is hiding somewhere, so she sends a police officer to look for him. Abby pretends to Carl so she can escape from him, but Brittany catches her and rings the bell for Carl to come down. Abby throws the radio next to Brittany, and when Carl sees her playing the radio, he gets angry, keeps beating her, and puts her in a water tank and covers it. Abby keeps begging him to let her go, but he tells her it's none of her business. Abby comes up with a trick and tells him that Brittany played the radio because she's pregnant. Carl is happy and takes Brittany out of the water and puts her on the bed and covers her. We go back to Mike, who is sitting with Clissy and telling her about Amy. Then Clissy gets a call that they've found Daryl's location, so they all head to where he is. When they enter the room, they find him dead from a heart attack. They also find photos of all the kidnapped victims, including a picture of Abby, Mike's daughter. At that moment, the police arrive at Daryl's place and find human organs inside the fridge. It turns out Carl was the one who planned all this to divert suspicion from himself. Carl is happy with Abby because she started listening to him, so he takes her to the kitchen and makes her have dinner with him. Abby takes advantage of Carl being out of the kitchen, grabs a piece of metal without him noticing, and hides it from him. At the same time, Mike gets a phone call from the restaurant he had called earlier. They tell him that Daryl has no records with them, but the other restaurant has a different team at Daryl's hospital. Mike remembers the young man he met at the hospital restaurant and realizes he's the killer. He runs to his car, pulls out the files he has, searches for him, and finds out his name is Carl. He's sure Carl is the killer when he remembers Amy saying he used to work in a restaurant. Mike gets in the car, takes Kelsey with him, and they rush to Carl's house. Kelsey tells their boss Carl's location and that they should hurry because he is the suspect. We go back to Carl, who receives a phone call from someone telling him the police have found him out and are heading to his house now. At this time, Abby finds Carl's phone, takes it, and tries to call her father, but Carl sees her and grabs her to hit her, but she hits him with the piece of metal she had hidden in his shoulder. He slaps her and takes her back down to the basement. After that, he turns off all the lights in the house, making it completely dark. At the same time, Mike and Kelsey arrive at Carl's house and find it all dark. Each of them goes in a different direction to surround him. Mike enters a room and finds pictures of all the kidnapped girls. Then he enters another room and finds baby incubators with many babies inside. He sees traces of blood on the floor and follows them until he reaches the basement. When he tries to open it, he finds it locked. But he finds a device on the door, turns it on, and starts calling his daughter, who hears him and starts responding. Abby tells him the key is in Carl's pocket. Mike tells Kelsey to stay where she is while he goes to look for Carl and get the key from him. At the same time, Lauren is giving birth, and Abby tries to help her. Mike goes upstairs to look for Carl, who is hiding in a ceiling opening. When he sees Mike, he silently comes down and follows him, but Mike senses him. Kelsey is on the floor below and hears gunshots. She goes upstairs and finds that Mike has killed Carl and taken the key from him. At that moment, Kelsey takes Carl's gun and shoots Mike without him noticing. We then find out that Kelsey was the first girl Carl kidnapped and that she worked with him all along. She was the one who called him to tell him the police were coming, and also the one who erased all the car data from the police devices and sent them to another location. At that moment, Mike puts the pieces together and realizes she was deceiving him. He sees her as she goes to check on Carl but finds him dead. Mike tries to reach the gun next to him, but Kelsey notices and moves it away, then takes the rifle again and tries to shoot him. Mike tells her to leave his daughter Aisha alone because she is pregnant. Kelsey shoots Mike with the rifle and kills him. The police arrive at the scene and rescue the girls, but they don't find any babies in the incubators, and they can't figure out that Kelsey was behind all the crimes. Sometime later, Kelsey sends a message to Abby, telling her to take care of herself for the sake of the baby in her womb. Kelsey has traveled and taken all the babies with her to raise them. We go back to Abby, who hears Kelsey's message and wonders how she knew she was pregnant. She hears the sound of children next to her and discovers that Kelsey was behind all the crimes. And that's where we end for today. I hope you enjoy the movie. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get all the latest updates.